bro. Dude.
It was rather sudden. So this final endpoint here, I'm going to scale it out by hitting S. So again, same hotkeys work all across Blender. Which is very nice. Awesome. So now if I play it back, you should see it moves rather fast at the beginning and then slowly tapers out towards the end to a nice soft landing, which is really cool. And that's pretty well, yeah, that's a pretty good animation. Now we could stop here, but the other thing we could do to get a little bit more motion in it is we could have the camera start closer to the donuts and then pull out as it goes further away. I hate that this keeps interrupting. I'm going to hide that. Okay, there we go. Select my pivot. There we go. So essentially we could have it so that it starts, like the camera starts right about here, and then it pulls out, and then as it pulls out, it goes a little bit further away and like ends back here. So have a think about how you would do that. How would you have the camera start closer to the pivot point, right? Now you might think, well, okay, we could animate the camera pulling in closer, but that would be overly complicated. We can just use the same pivot point, but we can scale it. Because you can see if I hit S, look at that, the camera goes closer, and if I pull it out, you can see the camera moves further away. So what I want to do is I want to go to the final endpoint here, the frame 160, which by the way, you can jump to an existing keyframe just by using the up and down arrows. So if I go up, you can see it's that keyframe, or down, it takes me to the front. So I want to go here and I want to create a keyframe just for the scale information. So here, because this is the end view that I want, so I'm going to hit I and then say not rotation, but
You're gonna hit I and then say not rotation, but scale.
scale. So now I'm going to go to the front of the animation and I'm going to scale it in to get a nice close-up of the donuts right there. And then I'm going to add another keyframe, I, and then scale. So you should now see in your graph editor, that's what it's called, you should see your rotation information and then your scale information. Now you'll note that the scale is like where is the scale information? It's here, but it's so small, like the amount of variance here, it's so small that it's just not readable. And the reason for that is that it's trying to combine two different data types into one view, right? Because rotation is happening on you can see here, it's I just wrote over the top of it. It's 0 degrees, and then down here you've got minus 90. So this is a minus 90, right? But then up here we've got scale that's happening between a 0 range and a 1 range, which is right next to it, okay? So 1, you could just hide your rotation, or you can click on normalize. And normalize will put everything between a 0 to 1 range. But just know that when you're in this range, if you try to move a keyframe to be a different value, like you took your scale and then you moved it down, when you confirm it, it'll snap back to where it was. And that's because with normalize on, it'll always put everything between 0 to 1. So don't do it if you're planning to change a value of something, normalize. But otherwise, it's okay to use for changing the handles, like in this case. But I'm going to hide my rotation anyway, because it's just going to get in the way. And instead, you can see that X, Y, and Z all have information in them because, of course, we're not scaling it on any particular axes. It's across all 3 axes at once because it's like it's the uniform value of scale. So again, I could do the same thing here. I could rotate this. I don't want. So again, I could do the same thing here. I could rotate this. I don't want there to be too much of a difference. Like, it's actually pretty good by default. Like, the scale isn't as noticeable that it slowly ramps up. And it's good to have like a kind of a softer movement as it pulls away. But I do want to change it a little bit. I'm going to select these final endpoints. I'll scale that out a little bit as well, just so that it's a little softer as it scales out. And that is pretty good, folks. Now you'll note as I play through this that in the top left-hand corner of the screen, you've got FPS, which stands for frames per second. If you play video games, you're already well familiar with that term. And you can see as we play through it, it can't really make up its mind. It's like 24, no, 25, 26, 20, 24. I think it's just a readout glitch in Blender. It's actually a constant 24 frames per second by default. But for whatever reason, it's kind of like fluctuating between them. Anyway, point is you can change that amount by going to your output settings over here, and then underneath format, you've got frame rate. Now, for whatever reason, Blender chose 24 frames per second, which is really only used for feature film. Everyone else, for like TV or YouTube, it's 30 frames per second. You can also go 60 frames per second if you wanted to really pay for longer render times, because it means things you have to render like twice as many frames, but it means things are buttery smooth. You won't actually see it right now because I'm recording this tutorial at 30 frames per second. Anyways, really, the options that most people choose are 24 for cinema and feature films, 30 if you're a normal person and you're making things for internet or YouTube or anything, and then 60 if it's for like 3D content or something that has to be really, really smooth. Anyways, we're going to set it to 30 because that is the more standard frame rate for for most things. I know people like to argue, but yes, 30 is, in my opinion, a much more reasonable frame rate for most things. And the final thing you'll note as we play through this is that it gets to frame 160 and then it just kind of pauses for a bit until it gets to frame 250 and then it loops back. And that is because the end frame is set to 250. So if we set this to 160 instead, which is what our animation ends at, you can see it will now play through and it'll get to the end and then it will loop back to the start. And also if you want to like reset this view in your timeline, you can hit the home key and that'll like expand it out a little bit. And there you go. So that is basically our final animation. You can tweak it, you can make it look a little bit more polished than what I have here, because when I'm recording a tutorial, I can only do so much before people get bored. But that's pretty good. It's not bad. So we are nearing the end. Go ahead, click here to join me in what might be the final part, where we're going to do rendering and forming that final animation.
Why does Wi-Fi only seem to work in this room?
You need Verizon Home Internet. Get fast, reliable coverage in every room. Then you can watch your shows in here.
Nice.
Or down here. Yep.
Switch to 5G home internet with whole home Wi-Fi included, only on Verizon.
Grammarly's top 3 tips on starting an essay.
Let's say you're struggling to...
We've got the donuts, we've got the animation. Now it's time to do our final lovely render. So we are rendering using the Cycles rendering engine, which, to jog your memory from the rendering video, the way it works is, turning off denoise, is it starts with a very noisy image with a low sample count, and then over time, you can see in the top left there, it throws more samples at it and it refines that image to be cleaner and cleaner, essentially. So if we were to set this maximum sample count to a really absurdly low value, like say 10 samples, you could see it renders very quickly, right? It's done almost instantaneously, but it's so noisy that you can't see any of the detail. Now, there is the magical denoise function, which we will be using. However, that is not, it does solve a lot. It's definitely helpful, but it's not perfect, especially for animations, because on each frame, the sample variation, even though it's set to be stable, there will be variances frame to frame. So if you're using a low sample count, this AI denoiser, it will do its best, but it'll still have like splotchy patterns that will appear. And you can actually notice it if you go looking for it. Like the other day I was watching one of Mr. Beast's videos and there was like an animation in it and I was looking at it and I saw like all this splotchy stuff like on the sides and I was like, oh damn, that team must be on like a really tight deadline because they did not have time to render out the proper the proper samples. But anyways, so I did a few tests for this exact scene here. You can see this is with 20 samples. You zoom into the background there, you can see splotchiness. It's especially noticeable in out of focus areas, which I'll show you how to do that out of focusness soon. But you can see it's very splotchy and you wouldn't ever want to use it. 50 starts to look a little more stable, but still the splotchiness is very noticeable. You don't want that. 100, this is where it's starting to look usable, but still not great. I wouldn't consider that good. 300 samples is where I consider the bare minimum for a scene like this. But ideally, you would be able to go up to 500 samples, which is where a lot of that splotchiness is so negligible that you don't really notice it. And if you have time or you don't mind rendering, overnight or something like that, or maybe a couple of overnights, 1,000 samples will get you an even cleaner looking result. So for my max sample amount, I'm going to go with 500. And by the way, there is viewport and there is render, and these settings are identical. I was tweaking viewport before because I was showing you in the viewport, but obviously it's what's in the render settings, which is going to be saved into your final animation. There is also noise threshold, also known as adaptive sampling. And the way this works is it will try to look at the image and determine which areas are already clean enough, and then which areas need more samples, like dark areas where there's not enough light or something, and it'll throw more samples specifically into that area. And it's very efficient, and I would love to use it. Unfortunately, it doesn't play well with the denoiser. With the denoiser, it can create splotchy areas, which are not good, obviously. So if you're using the denoiser, which, let's face it, is probably 99% of the time, then you can't really use the noise threshold. At least as far as I've seen, I haven't seen it work reliably enough. So uncheck noise threshold. Samples, I went with 500. Try to go, if you're on a laptop, maybe 300, but try to go up from there and you'll get a nice clean result. There's also time limit. I almost never use this, but this just puts like a cap on each frame. So if, I don't know, the samples was gonna take the image to like 25 seconds to render, if you set your time limit to be 20 seconds, it would just stop at whatever sample count 20 seconds gives it, and then it would move on to the next frame. But as I said, I almost never use it. I just want to use the exact sample count. Awesome. Now you might remember previously that when you want to do a render, you go render image, or you hit F12, and then this will kick off a single still render. And then from here, if I wanted to save this image, I would go image save as. Well, what we want to do is we want to render a sequence, like every single frame. And so to do that, we want to use not just render, but render animation. And when you do that, it will use and it will save the file for you in whatever you put in the output settings over here. So if we bring this out over here, you can see your resolutions defined up there. You got your and it will save the file for you in whatever you put in the output settings over here. So if we bring this out over here, you can see your resolutions defined up there. You got your frame rate, yada, yada, the output one here. So this is the folder where it's going to save the file to. And then your file format, I'll just move this up. This is a really important one. Now you would think that because we want to create a video file, right, that you could upload to Instagram or YouTube or whatever, that you would want to use one of these movie settings, maybe an AVI or an FFmpeg or something like that. But you would not. You would be wrong. But it's a common mistake a lot of beginners make. The reason you don't want to ever render a scene directly into this format is that if at any point during the rendering process your computer was to crash, or let's face it, Windows was to do another update overnight and you can never figure out when it's going to do it and it just does it randomly, and anyways, if it was to do that, you would lose everything. Everything that you have rendered has just vanished because it will not have created any file that you can actually read. So instead, you always render to still images, okay? So you want every single one of these frames to create a PNG and then put it into the output folder there, which you will then later take that sequence of 300 PNG images, let's say, or it's 160 in this case, and then put that into another process, which I'll show you, to create that final video file. So PNG is actually pretty good for most cases. If you want to go a slightly higher quality, you could use TIFF. If you really know what you're doing, you could use OpenEXR. But the problem with that is that it will not use, it won't embed like a display transform in it. So it'll save it into linear format. technical jargon just to say it's going to look terrible if you don't know what you're doing with it. So generally speaking, PNG or TIFF is the one you want. Never JPEG. The compression on that is terrible unless you're just throwing a still image up on Facebook or something. But PNG or TIFF, that's fine. And the color depth, you could go 8 or 16 bits. 16 bits will give you a lot more range, but it will be larger files. Unless you're planning to do color grading in something like After Effects or Nuke or something, I wouldn't bother with 16-bit. 8 should be fine. So you set your output folder to be something that makes sense. I usually just create a folder called frames.
That's Blender. New folder. Frame. Oh, nope, that is not the name. Rename frames.
And then within here, I just create another
For a walk.
subfolder. I call it like 1, just because you almost always need to render multiple times. But anyways, you create a subfolder there called 1.
I don't know. No. Frames, new folder. What is this called? Donut. Can you close the door, John? John, can you? John, can you close the door? John, close the door. No, really.
And then, I just kick off the render by going render animation. But before you do that, it is a good idea to check your scene to make sure that you haven't got any mistakes, because you're going to be rendering, and usually you're rendering overnight or maybe a sequence of days. and you don't want to have to go through the whole process of rendering only to bring it up and then go like, oh crap, I forgot to turn on that layer, or I forgot to fix that problem, or I didn't notice this before I did the render, and then you have to do the whole thing all over again. So here's a checklist. First, in solid view mode, click this little drop down next to your viewport overlays and then go face orientation. Now, what this is showing you is which faces are facing the correct direction. So the face is the solid part of the mesh, and it's like paper thin, right? But there is a correct direction and there is a wrong direction. So the correct direction is the direction that the camera and the shader expects to see, and it can render correctly. If it's showing you the opposite side of the face, it means that the shading is likely to get screwed up. So if you see anything in your scene that is red, it means that it is facing the wrong direction, okay? So in this case, it thought that the kitchen should be rendered outside, right? Because it was a cube that we started with, so it puts the faces outside it because it wouldn't know that we want to render inside it. So in this case, if you have a red face like this, you select it, select everything on the mesh just by tapping A, and then you want to hit Shift N, okay? Now that should fix it. If it doesn't, because on the case you want to have it facing inwards, like in this case, this little recalculate normals box here, if you click that, you can then click the checkbox that says inside, or a hotkey for it is Control-Shift-N, and that will do a recalculation inside. Anyways, long story short, you just want to make sure that everything you see is blue. If you've got anything, a sprinkle or you know, a very short is Control-Shift-N, and that will do a recalculation inside. Or a hotkey for it is, if you click that, you now everything on the mesh just by tapping A, and then you want to hit Shift. You select it, select everything on the mesh just by tapping A, and then you want to hit Shift N, okay? Now that should fix it. If it doesn't, because on the case you want to have it facing inwards, like in this case, this little recalculate normals box here, if you click that, you can then click the checkbox that says inside. Calculate, because on the case you want to have it facing inwards, like in this case. If it doesn't, because it Shift N, okay? Now that should fix it. Well, you made it. The end of the series. You've watched 14
Wix is your platform to perform on.
case, it thought that the kitchen should be rendered outside.
For documents, Blender, frames, donut, accept.
Right? Because it was a cube that we started with, so it puts the faces outside it because it wouldn't know that we want to render inside it. So in this case, if you have a red face like this, you select it, select everything on the mesh just by tapping A, and then you want to hit Shift N, okay? Now that should fix it. If it doesn't, because on the case you want to have it facing inwards, like in this case, this little recalculate normals box here, if you click that, you can then click the checkbox that says inside, or a hotkey for it is Control-Shift-N, and that will do a recalculation inside. Anyways, long story short, you just want to make sure that everything you see is blue. If you've got
have to do it in edit mode. Bro, oh my, I'm actually about to lose it.
Anything side. Anyways, long story short, you just want to make sure that everything you see is blue. If you've got anything, a sprinkle or, you know, a donut or a plate or anything like that, just make sure everything is showing up as blue because that's very important. All right, so now that's done, I can turn that off. The other thing that you want to check is that you haven't got any rogue objects that will be showing up in the render that you don't want to be there. Like, for example, this weird looking little UFO thing, right? These little sprinkles that are just hovering off into space here. So that is because we've got some sprinkles which are being referenced on our geometry node stack, but we don't want these individual ones which are being referenced to appear in the render. So on the sprinkles collection, I'm just going to uncheck this little camera icon, and that means it's viewable in the viewport, but it's not going to appear in the render. This will not affect the objects over here, when it's referenced in a geometry node system, it's just going to treat that as its own separate thing, and it's not going to hide it from the render. But it just means that these 5 little reference sprinkles will be invisible in the render. The other thing that you want to check is to look at your intersections, okay? Because looking at my donut, look at that. Wow, I've got a massive intersection. And this would be noticeable because the camera is now moving and it is above it, right? So you don't want to have intersections. So I'm actually going to use this as an excuse to slightly reorient my donuts and create a much more appealing looking stack, because I was experimenting before I hit the record button, and I thought if I just create, you know, both of these stacks so they're kind of like leaning on each other, then I rotate them a little bit like this, then I take this donut, I could move it out, rotate that, yeah, something like this, there we go. Right, and then, oh yeah, I'll rotate this a little bit more. It's a leaning tower of donuts. I'll move that out a little bit. But really, with this many objects on top of each other, you're bound to have something that looks a little funky. So just look at it from different angles. I mean, the most important one is the camera, right? Making sure that it is sensible, but because we've got a moving camera, it kind of has to look good from multiple angles. The other thing I noticed also is it would look a lot better if I could see the top of this donut here. So I noticed if I select this stack and I rotate it like this, almost like it's on the edge of that plate there, like the lip, and it's kind of leaning this way, it looks a lot nicer. Yeah, see, now I can see the top of that donut, and yeah, just feels a lot nicer.
Oh, how does everything I watch come into your recommended? What the heck? No, yeah, because obviously, because I'm interested in keyboard, I know why that came in my recommended. Because I was watching a keyboard video and I was like, oh yeah, because obviously I like keyboards, but yeah, I find it crazy that everything I watch comes in your recommended.
Might actually rotate a little bit further. And then I'll move it up. Have a look at your scene until I did after the render sequence was complete. And actually a co-worker of mine was also working on the scene, helping render some extra sequences. And he didn't notice it either. And we were both like, damn, how did we miss that? Because you just don't go looking for it. So I'm calling it out now because I'm sure a lot of you watching have got intersections and it's good to try to fix it now. And look, it is, you know, the plate. Is there a donut which is hovering above the plate like it is here? Make sure that it's not, or at least
I don't know, no. We're gonna add a. We're gonna add a. See the total money you owe me now, bro? It's $11,100. $11,100. Hey, you left one of the lights in the movie theater on. No.
just make sure that it is not in a place that's noticeable, because that will not be good, and you'll be I mean, I actually finished the final animation sequence for this tutorial, and then noticed right at the end that one of the donuts was like this, and I just didn't notice it right until I just right at the end that one of the donuts was like this, and I just didn't notice it right until I did after the render sequence was complete. And actually, a coworker of mine was also working on the scene, helping render some extra sequences, and he didn't notice it either. And we were both like, "Damn, how did we miss that?" Because you just don't go looking for it. So I'm calling it out now because I'm sure a lot of you watching have got intersections, and it's good to try to fix it now. Another one to check for is your lighting and your exposure ranges. So first thing I know is that looking at this is good. It's putting a lot of the attention on the donuts, which is great. But this, everything here in the background is just, it's so dark, it's almost hard to see. And it feels a little bit too moody, right? It's almost like a Rembrandt painting or something like that. I want it to feel a little lighter, a little bit more friendly. So on the roof here, on the ceiling of my kitchen, I'm going to shift
So what did he just say? I'm not what?
Not sleeping.
Oh,
and then right click to put my 3D cursor there. And then right at that point, I'm going to add in an area lamp. And I'm just going to move it down slightly just to make sure it's not clipping through the surface. And then, yeah, let's go look in this. So this is what it is with it off. And then if I just increase this, you can see it's just adding a little bit of fill light to the whole scene to just feel a little bit lighter. And a little less, extreme in its light choice. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, by the way, this power value, there's something called the inverse square law that applies to all lights in the real world and in 3D software. It just means that if something is double, like twice as close to something, it means it's going to be 4 times as bright. So what this means is that I've just added in an area lamp, right, at the top of my ceiling, but that's because this is just the size of the box that I've got. If yours is a little bit shorter than this, right, then when you placed it, then this lamp and this lamp energy that we've just defined here as 10 watts is going to be a lot brighter. So don't copy the values that I'm putting here. Have a look at your scene and try to evaluate it and go, is it bright enough? Is it too bright? Do I feel that this fill light
I'm having ice cream. I'm having ice cream.
Why is it fat?
Bro, I need a graphics card, bro. This is some bull, bro. This is laggy. Oh shoot. Oh, never mind. Bro, I need a graphics card ASAP, bro. What is happening, bro? To come in. That is the right angle. Bro, it's just my. Oh, I need a graphics card, bro. I have gravity. I need a $200 graphics card. Where? But if you don't shut your goofy looking. I need a graphics card, bro. Bro, I actually need a graphics card, bro. This is getting out of hand, yo. This is actually getting out of hand, yo. Yo, this is actually getting out of hand, chat.
Bro, I don't think your chat likes you. I think your chat likes me more than you.
Is there even anyone watching right this moment? No, there's not even anyone watching. Bro, how is this? I actually need a GPU, bro. I actually need a graphics card, bro.
I need a $2,000 GPU. $2,000.
Chat, I need a GPU, chat. Oh, I should just ask Chris for his. John, go ask Daddy if I can get a graphics card. Huh? It's 200. Stop saying 2,000. I mean, you're literally spending 100 on shoes, so just double.
And you spent 120 on shoes.
When?
With your KDs.
Those are not even 120.
How much are they?
They're 103.
103?
Yes, with tax.
I'm spending 100.
When with tax, you're spending more.
No.
Because they were 95 when I bought them, and with tax, somehow they came to 103. Actually, can you ask the mommy and daddy for a graphics card?
Actually, can you just like not spend $10,000 on the graphics card?
Wait,
You don't need an RTX 40.
I didn't ask for that. I asked for a 4060.
OTX 4060?
Yes.
That's not 200.
Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. It's not. It's 300.
Yeah. You're spending so much money on this one.
Bro, my graphics.
Dude, $5,000?
What? 4060 is $5,000.
No, that's how much.
Bro, get your goofy. Bro, actually, bro, get your goofy looking gone, bro.
Is
Oh, it's in the world setting. Bro, I'm so slow. Oh my god.
Is that why it's not loading?
I was like, what? No, my graphics card still sucks, but like, I was like, why is this taking so long?
Because you're honestly slow, so it's fine. You always have to get slow people.
John, if you don't get your goofy self gone, bro, I'm actually about to beat the living daylights.
Yeah, if you could, of course you want to. Of course you can.
Oh my PC's actually so hot.
PPT still.
My PC's so hot. And I'm not even using my graphics card because it's not supported.
So, bet you won't say that N-word in front of her.
What did you say?
I bet you won't say that N-word in front of her. Like, just use it casually.
You bet I won't say the N-word in what?
In front of like mom's friend. Like, casually.
No, I won't say the N-word in front of my friend.
You will?
Obviously I won't.
No, like, I'm saying it as a dare. I'll jump in the pool right now. Actually, no, I can't. It's 24 hours.
No, jump in the pool and all your skin will peel off. So I'm down.
You're done?
Yeah.
I'll do it really quickly.
No, you have to stay in the pool for at least 20 seconds so the acid
I
seeps
can't
in.
do that. I'll jump in and get out.
Huh?
I'll jump in and get out.
No, I need the acid to seep into your skin.
I need that acid to keep in the skin. I need
John, if you don't shut your goofy looking gun.
Hey, look at me. 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 Hey.
I'll look at you if we put this for a while. John, shut up, bro. Oh, shoot, they're linked. Yo, that makes so much.
Too overpowering, right? Or is it underpowering? Just evaluate it and try to do it as fairly as you can. And something that I recommend, and this I do a lot of the time for a lot of final renders, is underneath your color management, if you go to View Transform, change it from AGX to False Color. Now, this, obviously, you never want to do for a final render, but this is revealing to you what is the exposure range of different parts of the image. Kind of like if you're using a camera and it's got like a zebra thing to like show you which parts are clipping. This is like that, but it's like to an advanced level. Essentially, it's showing you, I mean, I'll put this up from the Blender documentation, but it's showing you what is the exposure range of which parts of the image. And there's no like right or wrong here, but generally speaking, you want to have a nice range, because then it's showing there are parts that are in light and then there are parts that are in shadows, and there is a range there so that you can reveal the form. There are exceptions to it, but generally that's the idea. Now, in my case, I want to make sure that really there's very few areas that are in the red or the white. The white means there is actually no information there because it has clipped. So that is not good. It's okay for a few areas, right, where there's a few highlights, but generally speaking, you don't want too much. Now, in my case, I think it's a little bit too high, so I'm just dialing it back. And just so that I get most of, you know, the part of the donut where it's hitting the light, it's mostly in the orange to yellow range.
I think I'm pretty good on that.
With a very small amount of red or white coming through. So once I'm happy with that, make sure you change it back to AGX, otherwise you'll be rendering to false color and that will look horrible. A few other aesthetic choices. I noticed that the pink was a little bit too hot. The saturation does make a difference. So I'm just gonna dial it back to around about a 0.6 value. I also noticed that this yellow color was a little bit too close to mustard, so I'm just gonna tweak the hue here just to make it a little bit more exciting. Kind of like a banana yellow, right? And a little bit brighter as well. Just a little, kind of like a banana yellow, right? And a little bit brighter as well. Just a little bit more cheerful. The blue I'm gonna make a little closer to an aqua, which is a little more funky, a little, I don't know, more interesting, at least to me. An aqua, which is a little more funky, a little, I don't know, more interesting. at least to me. The base color, oh yeah, this one here. So I decided after looking at this and evaluating it, I'm like, I should just go with the white icing like what I had in my my final render. So just creating a new material, call it white icing.
No!
Imagine if manufacturing automation was...
I'm gonna make a little closer to an aqua. This color, oh yeah, this one here. So I decided after looking at this and evaluating it, I'm like, I should just go with the white icing like what I had in my my final render. So just creating a new material, call it white icing, right? And also for the donut, I noticed I forgot to put subsurface scattering on the donut itself, because donut, although it's bread, right, it's not going to have as much subsurface scattering as the icing, but it will have some, right? So I'm going to give it a weight of 1, radius, make sure that's all.
Bro, my PC is literally breaking, bro.
Always set to 1. And then this value here, let's go 0.01. Like that, which I think is actually more than the icing that we gave it. But anyways, it works because it's kind of doughy. I think it's actually more than the icing that we gave it. But anyways, it works because it's kind of doughy. We can kind of get away. Yeah, maybe I'm having second thoughts right now. Yeah, we'll go 0.01. Why not? Make it look a little bit more stylized and cartoonish. The other thing that I can see looking at this is that this part here, right, with these ball sprinkles on it, it's very like high frequency detail, which is just like a technical term to mean like small detail. Like artists always invent terms just to sound smarter than they are, but it looks high frequency, right? And it's a little too high frequency. It's good to have some small detail, but not that small. It's just it's kind of gritty, and it's kind of like it's sticking out like a sore thumb to me. So what I'm going to do is go to my geometry node setup just for my round sprinkles here. And by the way, also make sure you're looking at the correct one, not long sprinkles. Uncheck that little pin if you've got it like I did. And then I'm going to change the round sprinkles scale, dragging down to 1.5. So it's a lot bigger, which means I can use a different distance min value. .002, and whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance value for the long sprinkles, because I noticed it was feeling a little too even, the distribution of these, which generally means that with this Poisson distribution, it's using the distance to make sure that they're all perfectly evenly spaced, and it's a little bit, it's too big, essentially. So I'm going to set this to 0.004 instead, which means you will have some overlaps and some clipping. if we use a lower count here in our setup, like 80, for example, or even lower, right? It should feel a lot more natural, right? It doesn't look like before. It was like 200 when it was, this was 0.006, and now it's like 30, but it still almost feels like the same as what it was before, because that distance, when you lower it, you're getting more sprinkles in there, even though it's a lower sprinkle density. Anyways, technical. Also lower this one because that's just too many, so let's go like 50 for that.
Oh no. Oh no, man. Oh no, man.
It's just perfectly its min value, 0.002. And whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance value for the long sprinkles, because I noticed it was feeling a little too... even the distribution of these. I can use a different distance min value, 0.002. And whilst I'm here, I'm also going to change the distance value for the long sprinkles.
Bro, where? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, shoot. I did not even realize. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Geometry nodes.
Because I noticed it was, I'm also going to... to change the distance value for the long sprinkles, because I noticed it was feeling a little too even, the distribution value for the, and what only me to 0.004 instead, which means you will have in our setup like 80, for example, right? 0.06 distance. When you lower it, you're getting more sprinkles in there, even though it's a lower sprinkle density. Anyways, technical. Also lower this one because that's just too many, so let's go like 50 for that. And that's pretty good. You can also experiment, like I tried changing the different, like whether this one has long sprinkles or whether this one at the top has round. You can play around with these. I went went, I think the bottom one I gave long. This one, I'm going to turn it off. So no sprinkles on that one. And just try and get a nice, feel for it. I really just trying to go for something that looks a little balanced in its detail, so you don't have too much repetition across it. So I'm trying to get a nice breakup of like round, long, none, round, etc. The other thing, since we're talking about detail, is looking at this, right? This is small detail. This is small detail. These shapes here, right? This is large detail. Okay, so we've got large and we've got this small detail. We don't have any medium detail. And it's good to have a variance across the scene. Just, I don't know, it's one of the design rules. It just helps things feel a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So something I saw when I was looking on Pinterest many years ago for one of the old donut series was like, you can put bigger sprinkles, like a few big chunky sprinkles on it. And it just adds variance to it, and it just makes it look a lot more appealing. So for that, you could do it using geometry nodes, but I just do it by hand placing like 3 sprinkles. So on this donut here, shift right clicking on this part of the donut. I'll go into, here we go, solid view mode, and then Shift A, and then I'm going to add in a UV sphere. Default settings are okay. I'm just going to scale it down. Like that, right? So this is the size of the sprinkle, quite big. You could imagine it almost as like a gumball or something. It's probably not big enough to be a gumball, but you know what I mean, like something big, right? Make sure you're using shade smooth. And for the material, sorry if this is like getting too in the weeds, but a lot of people when they're following tutorials, they like to know the exact settings that I used. So I'm trying to show them all whilst tutorials. They like to know the exact settings that I used, so I'm trying to show them all whilst not taking too long. But yeah, there we go. So I go for like a aqua color, yeah, like that, and then I want to turn the roughness like all the way down. Like that. Cool. And now I just need to duplicate that sprinkle. So duplicate here. And I'll pull it out. And I'm just going to go with 3. You could go for more, but I'm just going to go with 3. And I'm only going to put it on this donut. I'm not going to bother with the others. I'm going to say this is the special one. This is the one that we want your eye to be drawn to. So So this is the one with a little bit more detail than the others. I'm sorry if I'm doing a horrible zigzaggy job of... I could do snapping, but I'm like, it's just too much work to do the snapping functions for this. So I'm going to select those three, shift... select the icing, Control P, and then go keep transform. There we go. So now they're all attached to that. And just in control functions for this. So I'm going to select those three. Shift select the icing, Control P for this. I do snapping, but I'm like, it's just too much work to do the snapping functions for this. So I'm going to select those three, shift select the icing, Control P, and then go keep transform. There we go. There we go. So now they're all attached to that. Just in case I move the donut, it's correctly done. The final thing I think I changed was the world settings underneath the air and dust for our sky texture. I just dialed it back to around about a 0.7, just a little bit cooler in the lighting, right? As you might remember, I told you, if you go all the way there, it's like the sky just becomes like blue. And if it's too far up, then it becomes yellow and orange or whatever, like kind of too decayed. But, you know, like a 0.7-ish, it'll just look, it just feels a little cleaner in comparison to what it was. Awesome. Now we're almost there. I promise you, we're almost there. The one thing that you probably do want to know how to add is depth of field. It adds a lot because every single camera in the real world has depth of field, except for pinhole cameras. Interestingly, because there is no optics in a pinhole camera, so it can have like infinite depth of field, supposedly. Anyways, the depth of field settings is underneath your camera. Okay, so select your camera, then click on the data here, and then depth of field right at the bottom. So check that box and everything will become blurry because it doesn't have a focus object yet. So click the little eyedropper tool and then just click on this icing, this pink donut icing right in the front here. And there you go. So that is depth of field. It used to be really difficult to do in Blender. I started 20 years ago, and it was this horrible motion blur thing you had to do for the camera to rotate it. Anyway, it's just a checkbox now. It's fascinating. Anyways, the f-stop. If you're unfamiliar with cameras, the lower the f-stop, the shallower that depth of field. So you can see very little of this image is actually in focus. So it's actually good for miniatures. But if you want more of the scene to be in focus, you want more of this donut stack to be seen, I would go with an f-stop somewhere between 6 or 8, something around that range. I think I went with 8 for my final one, or maybe it was 6. Can't remember. Anyways, but you can see the stuff in the background there is now out of focus, and it puts the attention where it should be, right on those donuts in the middle. And the other thing that I always forget to enable is motion blur. So underneath your render settings here, you just need to check.
Yeah. So when will you read them? So at 10 o'clock. So they just outsource it. That's it. I don't know. I'll probably just not have it. Huh? I just won't have anything.
Can you take my bowl? I need a graphics card.
Okay, then why didn't you tell Daddy that?
I don't know.
I'll buy it for you. Where do you buy it from?
Amazon.
Okay. You have to
I don't know
pay.
why are you spending so much money on a dress?
I won't buy shoes or anything.
And
No,
actually,
I buy shoes also.
setting is usually fine. It's a little smooth, like it's a little bit too blurry sometimes, so you might want to drop it to like 0.4 or something.
These guys know that the country will go to. Like, see, for them, they are like, whenever they are so they always want to maintain less than 5%.
That's why they come up to use these projects. Next to keep it on.
Cause I ain't no campaign.
And like some of these guys
And the other thing that I always pay attention where it should be. Anyways, but you can see this little line is now focus and it puts the attention where it should be. And the other thing that I always forget to remember is motion.
and then this guy
Focus. And it puts the attention where it should be right on those dots in the middle. And the other thing that I always forget to enable is motion blur. So underneath your render settings here, you just need to check motion blur. And actually find the default setting is usually fine. It's a little smooth, like it's a little bit too low or something, so you might want to drop it to like 0.2 or something. But it should be okay. It should be defined with the default. It usually looks okay. So, are we ready to render our final animation? I actually thought yes. So that little jump cut that you saw there was me going, yeah, let's render that animation. And then I rendered it out. And then I came back and I went, wait a minute, I've made some errors. Bum, bum. Let's tell you what they are. I'll give you a clue. Right here, right here, right here. We're missing those three little balls that we created with the spring. And also, mysteriously dark. Almost as if the area that we added is not there. So, I'll first of all say, it's very common to think that you're finally ready, everything looks good, kick off the final animation. I've sometimes waited like over a week for a whole animation to finish, and then I come back and I open it up, and I go, oh no, I forgot to turn off that layer, I forgot to turn on that layer. Actually, the technique sometimes is presentation. They said they rendered the first frame, the middle frame, and then every shot before they did a full animation sequence. Because that usually reveals so I should have done that. Didn't. Anyways, my mistake. When we disabled this sprinkles collection, right? We disabled it from appearing in the render. That's fine. But when we created these objects, I didn't know what was the active collection. When you add a new object, it adds it to whatever is the selected collection, is the one with the little box around it. So, obviously, it put it inside of that collection.
Why it is happening? See, their economy is not even Mexico's economy is not.
So these spheres should not be inside the sprinkles. So I'm going to drag it out into the donuts collection, which is where it should be. And then this area lamp as well. That's the reason the donuts collection is
okay. And we will report you as soon as you come. If you don't have a visa, we report you. But we'll give you enough visas.
And then this area lamp as well. That's the reason that the background is dark.
So, from a long-term perspective, think about it. People come illegally. They are never going to integrate into the society. Now you have only worsened the problem. You're kicking the can down the road. Rather, if you had said, you can come in. When you come in legal, you pay the taxes here. When you go back, sorry, you don't get the money back. The social security, whatever you pay, you pay. It stays here.
because that was inside. That now should look a lot better. So do a test render. Just by just doing one render could have revealed this problem. That looks first what I should have done. I mean, like even just doing one render could have revealed this problem. It's that obvious. But do a test render. Check. You've got the holes appearing. The fill light is now in the background. Another thing I noticed, and this is because it's the next day that I'm recording this, when you look at something with fresh eyes, you often notice different things. So I thought that this exposure looked pretty good, but then now having a look at it the next day, I can see that it's a little overexposed. Okay, so if you look at the false color, this is what it looks like, and there's just too much orange there. So essentially, I'm going to drop this back. Okay, so it's like mostly yellow.
I always think like, okay, people have problems. You tell them, hey, you come in, but maybe you might have to pay a tax rate or something legally, and you strengthen the law. If you come illegally, we are going to. So right now, the problem is they don't have enough immigration officers.
Yeah, exactly.
So these guys wanted to
Takes a long time to process any
paperwork. So these guys, the bill is a higher quality.
Yeah.
To detain them, you can't, the legal says that, the constitution says that you can't immediately send them back. You have to detain them and then the case has to be processed and then sent back. Now, to process that, you need people. So he wanted to spend more so that we are not waiting for 6 months to process it. We can immediately process it within 30 days, right? So unless you put money into these areas, you are not going to get any results. So
that was just one of the things that was in the bill. There were lots of bad things in the bill as well. Because he was allowing up to 50,000 illegal immigrants a day in the US without taking any action. He said only if it exceeds 50,000, that is when we will take action.
So what they are saying is, right now it is up to that number it is coming.
Window or something, but look at it with your own eyes, and if it looks wrong when you're using this exposure,
CNN made it like it's a heaven. I like to watch anything. Because both of these guys are on the other extreme. So ABC News actually did that thing, and they said, Bill has that. As soon as you implement the bill, right, you don't have this illegal immigration problem. They are saying that once you come on the board, you will be immediately detained and processed back.
That's not what I heard about the bill.
So that's why they wanted more people.
They wanted more people than process people. But at the same time, this processing and all that will take place only after the threshold.
No.
Below the threshold, people can come immediately without any problem.
How do they know the threshold?
Because even now they know how many people are coming, right? They have a count. They're just letting them go. They're like, come on, chalo. And in fact, now these days, all this processing, because it takes a while, they just take their paper, they make you sign a whatever paperwork, and then say, whenever we call you for a hearing, you will come back. Okay? But they don't know when they're going to get called. And in the meantime, these people are free to go anywhere in the US. So they just go into some small village and disappear. And they don't care about the being called back because they're not living there, surviving there, thriving there. They don't go back. That's what's happening. And that's happening there in the soil in college park in America. So they're declared themselves as a sanctuary city. So because so, and the thing is that I'm very passionate about this because it's affecting me.
There's a different value. Tweak it and try to make it look accurate. Because actually, I was on Discord this morning looking at some of your renders, join the Discord if you're not on there. And I was like, okay, a lot of people also have overexposed renders, so I should bring that up. Anyway, we are now finally ready to do a render. So again, I am using no noise threshold, 500 samples.
Hey John, can you come here and tell me something? Does this look better? John, does this look... Oh, wait a sec. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, sorry, my bad, bro. Okay, bro, it's on new graphics. Or does that look better? The first one or that one? The first one? So you're saying this looks better?
State itself was sanctuary, but we were one of
You're saying this looks better?
towns
Yeah. Than this. That looks better than this. Wait. It's not negative. Sorry, my bad. That looks better than this. You're lying.
For me, I do agree with it, right? I was thinking, why can't we increase the number of people based on you have a hiring problem here anyway. Make it such a way that you know they are able to work and you can integrate them into society rather than just leaving them. And then 5 years down the lane, it's a bigger problem because they don't have a job. Then now they will start stealing.
Exactly.
And now
So
we
that's
are.
what's happened in our neighborhood. Rents have gone up so much. Like, and you know what? Like, they go to any exit, stealing trash cans. Like, we put our trash cans in the trash bin, and then we come back home and the trash is gone. People's cars are getting stolen. People's like these Amazon packages and all has been very, very common that they get stolen. And okay, so this is one end of the story, and that's happening. Second end of the story, so our neighbors are Muslim. And most of these immigrants that we have, for whatever reason, are all Muslims. And so now the cops refuse to take action against any Muslim who is doing all this. So now these days a lot of people have their cameras on, right? So they have it on camera. You can see the person because we have this neighborhood app. Exactly, where you can see what's happening. So they post a video. Like, I can see that this person is stealing an Amazon package. They go to the cops and the cops are like, no, this person is Muslim, we cannot do anything.
That's great.
Yeah. It's nothing is happening. Every day we have a madrasa in our neighborhood. Every Friday has a prayers and all. So lots of people come. They park in front of neighbors' driveway, even in front of the driveway park. And so the neighbors are like, what if I have to go out of the house or there's an emergency? So if they go and complain, cops are like, we can't do anything. We just send it to Friday, Friday home.
So you can change the mayor once
but he just got, and the thing is, people don't go and vote, right? So there were 3 candidates for mayor position. Okay, one was this Muslim guy, one was a Chinese guy, one was a white guy. Okay, Chinese guy got 25 votes, white guy got 55 votes, Muslim guy got 1800 votes. So every single Muslim in the area got voted. Other people went
Actually, we were where we lived in New Jersey. Actually, we had a Muslim mayor. So she was the first Muslim mayor. And I had a
all we know is red from red.
She went to Georgetown for her undergrad master's from Harvard. And she was very good, very recent, like, you know. So, in fact, there was another Indian, he went a lot from Andhra Pradesh. He was like, you know, he said that she's really good, she was good. And that time was the whole crisis happening with the asylum, Syrian crisis, everything happened. So she was actually very hesitant, you know, to make it. Then the Catholic parish priest spoke to her and you should allow them. We welcome them, but let's keep the law and order. So it was like she did a very good job of keeping the law and order. They used to pray. Of course, obviously, it was very different, right? When you see them, like for the first time, US SSR, like
and also in public places, in the streets and all. So now everyone was in the garden and on 7 p.m. we did all like, when you say, I don't really come from suddenly they wanted to see people, it's just get it on top.
So, yeah, actually, we went out for a walk and then nature was all like, I don't like it seeing you. So it feels different, right? So,
What do you want from me? Okay, look. Tell me what color looks better. Does this color look better? Does for the donut? Does this look better, or does this look better?
This one, second one.
The second one? Okay.
I told you.
Yeah, you did. Tell me.
Why didn't you send it home?
Because I thought John was lying to me because he always does that to make my stuff look worse.
Jolly. No, you're not.
Look, where's the vacuum thing? You're telling me to reduce it? This is what you guys have to deal with it.
Like my clothes are stolen, my car is hot. It is a lot.
Every day that's all.
And then you see.
All this is quite different.
Exactly.
Here, this country is built on law and order. The whole nation of
You're right, now that I turn the lights on,
for me, I always tell you, I find it to be more secure than any other part of the world.
Right, that's how it used to be. But at least it's not anymore. Like before all this happened, our biggest concern was somebody took their dog for a walk and the dog pooped and they didn't keep a good pocket. That was the biggest thing that ever happened was.
Can you play with mommy?
Car being stolen, cars being broken into, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, actually, in Sugarland, there was
Where's the
a
I don't know how to open it.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
So somehow they
This
found
is
it
expensive.
very expensive. It's $10,000.
Yeah,
So they fought over the thing, and it seems that they had to pay and it's yet
Whatever people think about it. Like in our city, now the cops are giving away the steering wheel away for the road tax. That was free.
just to
Safety
buy.
के लिए, हाँ. So that they won't be breaking the car and stuff.
That's actually we should take it. See, in one thing is that in Texas, you get a shoe.
Bulbs!
If somebody comes, you better.
They're your property, you're saying.
I think in the other democratic cities, they are more lenient.
Absolutely.
But somehow, I always find it amazing that there is not a good balance. That's why I was saying, you know, sometimes you find the lenient country, the Democrats are too lenient, the Republicans are too much on the other.
Exactly.
So for me, I always feel like
somewhere
in the middle.
Yeah.
Get me a person who is in the middle rather than going on extreme. Extreme, right? Because this guy was saying 25 years ago when I came into this country, that time, okay, LGBTQ, they were fighting for their rights, but it was not a huge issue. Right? And I always go to Canada, you know. I always believe live, love, let it. You don't enter my space, I am not your
But that rarely happens because people do end up in your space one way or the other, whether intentionally or unintentionally.
But at least if you get to know it, then stop at that time, right? So you know, at the end of the day, everybody has to go it.
Right, absolutely.
There is a difference. Keep it in mind and let's go through it properly. Right? So this side you have all these issues, right? On the extreme right, so this guy will say women's rights, they should be able to abort. And then okay. Whatever they want to do, it's their choice. It's not my point. I don't know what.
Where are the
It's like
for the bathroom.
there is a video. 1 minute. Check out here. Or in the actually your mom put it. I kept it here. There were 4 bulbs. Ask her where she kept. I kept 4 bulbs here. Yeah, so on this side it's these there. And then okay, fine. I don't want to tell the woman what she has. This side is the extreme right where they want to tell the woman how she has to do.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I always feel like, what is this obsession with the right thing? Always in both worlds, right? And I've seen it every time my childhood. The extreme right thing guys do. First, what is she has to do? How she has to do. So in Tamil Nadu, even there we used to do. The women first, they got cast up.
Okay.
So the government made sure that everybody gets the gas. Because they were too loud. So they said, why should government go to this? They said gas. And then cylinder was up. Very good. They gave mixing. So people there used to be stone in our village. स्टोन में बनाने से टेस्टी होता है more authentic. My dad makes stone. Some guy how many times have you been on that? Why are you so obsessed, right? Let the woman make a choice what she wants to do. She has a shoulder pain or something, and even now, as I'm telling you in South, the guys, both the women and the men, go to work together. They come back. And then I was watching one of the social programs. Woman goes to bed at 10 o'clock. She has to make herself fire. And then she has to wake up at 4 o'clock, start preparing food for herself and her. I'm always thinking that. What is it? And the problem was, the guy was looking that he was not getting like on this so you're not that kind of mentality. Right. So because it's psychologically once you go through that, then you go so where is it? Oh, she can. Because then you can have that. Yeah. So why can't they do something about this? Why can't people
It's gone.
What we should do?
What do you think? So that's simple.
I think actually what happened is a long time ago I was taking a course on psychology. I thought that the more you do the fear moment, the more it is easy for you to get people on board.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a good shit,
Total fear.
Absolutely. And also you started with like if you're not doing people against America.
So now what the world I'm seeing when I see the discourse Bhagwan ऐसे leader because I did see this great
G-Blocky. Albino is ready, Rami.
Get that up to 1,000 if you want it to be non-jittery. Denoise, open image denoise.
because it was right this time he actually brought me
1,000 if you want to be non-jittery. Denoise, open image denoise, and then I'm outputting it to TIFFs, just RG.
What would be me going and looking and why do you want to do they will remember this forever. Let it be.
8-bit, we don't need alpha, 8-bit, and then I'm just putting it into a font, which, because I made a mistake, I'm going to put it into another font, I'll put it into, that's why I put them in something. Anyways, now that I'm ready, I'm going to go render animation, and this is now kicking it off. I can now leave it, walk away, and it will just start, as it finishes rendering, it will just start dumping it into the folder. And there you go. So you can, final part of this tutorial to learn how to take that sequence and form a video file that you can use and send, etc. So click here to watch the final part of this tutorial series.
Okay, so I guess I have to render it.